Well, good morning, everyone. This is Mike Hull with eBECS, and it is 11 o'clock, so we're going to start the webinar. Thanks very much for coming. And what I'd like to do first is to just introduce everybody that is participating this morning from the presentation side. Great. So introductions from the eBECS side. First of all, we have Justin Biggs, and Justin will be adding color to our presentation, talking about some of the things that we've done with ZAP. James Gilmer is on my marketing team, and I'm Mike Hull I'm the Director of Sales and General Manager. And from ZAP, we have Garth Laird, Vice President of North America, Trey Johnson, Vice President of Pre-Sales Team, and Bill Tennant, who will be also presenting some of the slides with me. So that's who you have. So agenda-wise, we're going to have a very short eBECS overview, and a ZAP BI presentation, or solution overview by Bill. And then we'll jump into Trey and Justin giving demonstrations. And then again, Q&A, just email me the questions and I'll feed them to the presenter. So that's our agenda for the morning. The other thing is follow through. We will be following up with each of you, and the idea here is that the presentation today is just to give you a flavor for what ZAP will do. And if you're interested in following further with that, we will have a conference call with some discovery. And then following that, if you want to go forward from there, we'll do a one-to-one demonstration with you. And you can see my name, telephone number, and email address there at the bottom. A couple things we want to talk about. First of all is that eBECS will be at Convergence. So I think most of the people on this call today are AX users. And so we will be in the Expo Hall at booth 205. You'll also see two of our customers, one of which is using ZAP, and that's Aston Martin. I believe that they'll actually be speaking from the podium at some time during Convergence. So it's a very interesting deployment of AX. JJ Food Services is another one, and I know they're getting an award from Microsoft on being innovative in using Dynamics AX and the Microsoft technology stack. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is that eBECS is well known for its expertise in lean manufacturing and supporting lean manufacturing processes inside of AX. We've developed a number of extensions, and we'll be giving a demonstration on those extensions on Tuesday night at the Hampton Inn. It's directly across from the Convergence Conference Center. So write that down if you would, if you're interested in lean manufacturing. But we'll be at Convergence. Just real quickly here, eBECS has been in AX since 2001. We're a bona fide VAR partner inside of the AX community, so we sell, implement, provide ongoing support, and obviously we do a lot of development, building out functionality for AX. We're about 200 people, North America, England, and the Middle East, so we're a fairly good-sized AX VAR, specifically focused at that. Microsoft, we're very proud of the fact that we're on the inner circle. It's only 1% of all partners in Microsoft that get to be on the inner circle. That's a huge accolade. We've been Reseller of the Year in the United Kingdom, both in 2012, last year, and 2010. So we do an awful lot of business inside of Dynamics AX. We've also been working with ZAP for probably 2 years now, maybe 3 years. We have a number of people using it, but these are some of our customers that you might see out on our website. We've got case studies on them, and ZAP is a big part of the value that we've brought to those implementations. And our angle on deploying business intelligence is that pretty much we believe that a great deal of the value a customer is going to gain from Dynamics AX is found inside of the ability to massage the data in a meaningful way. So our goal is to be agile and get people using ZAP in a meaningful way very early on in the implementation. We want to equip key users to get that done. So our functional leads on our side, on our implementation team, are actually looking for analyses that will be helpful for the different functional area leads on the customer side. We want to equip the key users so that it's really an operationally driven kind of application. We really see tremendous value in it, and so we want our customers in it as soon as possible And we feel like as soon as they get their hands on it, start using it, they'll get very creative with it. One of the things we do is we analyze data consumption. That's just how people use data. And that could be something like putting information on a roll page. It could be Excel kind of reports with rows and columns. And it could be true analysis. And true analysis you'll see in a little bit, see how that works. But that's to really be able to drill down, solve problems, look for opportunities, and that kind of thing. So we actually do some analysis of data consumption with each of our customers. And then we create a flow strategy, and that's just how you're going to deploy that, or how you're going to get that data out to people, and what's the format in which they want to be able to see it. So we do that. And then sometimes we're able to expand to other SQL databases where there might be historic data, and I know that the ZAP team will cover that, but we see that as a huge advantage to our customers because they can not only see AX data, but they can bring other data in as well. That's eBECS view and objectives in dealing with BI at our customers. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to hand it over to Bill Tennant, who will start us down the path of the ZAP demo, and then he'll be handing it over to Justin Biggs and Trey Johnson to actually carry out the demo. So Bill, it's all yours.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, and appreciate everybody joining. What I'm going to do is simply run through a couple more slides, and we're really only going to spend a couple of minutes on this because I'd love to get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, which is what Trey and Justin are going to run through. But I think it's worthwhile taking a look at exactly where ZAP is, who we are, and a couple of the things that we've done within the AX community. All right, so we've been in the business for the last 10 years, 10 plus years. We have global coverage. As you can see, we are helping customers across over 30 countries. We were previously an Australian-based organization, but just this year, we have actually moved our headquarters to North America. Our CEO, as well as the president of ZAP North America, are headquartered with quite a few of our team out of the San Francisco headquarters, but we also have folks located across the country and throughout North America. ZAP is truly meeting the needs of enterprise AX customers and providing a complete BI solution. What we do is we actually have two different pieces to our software. We have a product called Cube Express, which goes in and it actually takes all of your data out of AX, any SQL database, any CRM database. We pull that in and we're putting it inside of our Cube Express product, which is essentially a checkbox-based metaphor which allows you to create an OLAP hypercube, which can then be connected to our scalable data presentation layer, our ZAP BI layer. Complete out-of-the-box integration to AX. One of the reasons we've been so successful within the AX market is the fact that we are able to really and truly get our users up and running within a matter of days and weeks as opposed to months and years. We completely shifted the paradigm associated with BI so that organizations like the ones on this webinar are able to essentially begin to utilize our role centers, our analyses within the enterprise portal, also within SharePoint. But we also offer 700 plus out-of-the-box analytics or tangible business outcomes, which get you started from day one receiving that return on investment that you're looking for with BI. So it no longer has the risk associated with the typical BI project where you're spending 6, 8, 12 months just trying to get that cube up and running so that you can start to build analyses. From day one, you're going to be in a position of power and strength so that your organization can start to use that and start to move forward into a customized BI solution. You know, after 500 plus customers and actually after close to 100 AX customers in North America, we have really come to know exactly what our customers are looking for in a BI solution. It's that complete end-to-end product with that large-scale local support. So our users are able to access our local support within the ZAP support team as well as within the eBECS team. We obviously have that partnership where we're able to work together and provide you with exactly what you need to ensure that you are running a BI product that's going to put you in the right position. Full Microsoft endorsement. In fact, Microsoft has now, in parts of North America, is now running ZAP on top of AX 2012 so that when they are presenting AX 2012 to a new organization, ZAP is the role centers and the analytics and reports that come out of the box with that Microsoft product. Full Microsoft endorsement across, as well as full integration to the ecosystem. You see our relationship with eBECS today. We are also working with all of the top AX partners in North America as well as globally. And one of the final things I think it's important to look for in a BI solution is a large list of reference customers. You need to be able to pick up the phone and speak to a number of customers that are actually using our product and are actually happy and have gone through a very in-depth vetting process to ensure that what you're putting yourself into is the absolute best BI product on the market today. And ZAP has that. In fact, I would say that our customer satisfaction rating is well above 99%. And finally, best practice industry analytics. We're going to talk about just a couple of customers quickly here that are utilizing ZAP. And our industry analytics, our 700 plus out-of-the-box analytics that come with ZAP are what is going to get you running from day one. And then we can fully customize those to your actual organization. And as you can see, Mike displayed a couple of customers here previously that are working with eBECS, but here are a couple of customers or a number of customers that are working with ZAP across North America. Some you may or may not recognize. What I'm going to do is just quickly pull out those the top three on the left there so that we can take a look and go through what these organizations have done. Rockwater Energy is a large energy business in the South, and it's quite an interesting story, actually. They're on AX, and they came and looked at ZAP on October 27th. By November 9th, they had actually made the decision and gone forward and signed all of the paperwork to purchase ZAP and implement that across their entire enterprise. In that time frame, we actually did a full-fledged proof of concept and put them in a position where they could see exactly what we could offer with those analytics out of the box. And upon the purchase, we actually started to implement ZAP, and by mid to end December, they were actually presenting board-level reports using ZAP across their entire organization. Clean Energy, another very large, very complex billion-dollar company. This ERP and CRM project was put together. They're implementing ZAP across the entire enterprise as well, and they're actually, I believe, in the midst of the implementation currently. And finally, a large multi-company distributor. ZAP is fully able to handle all the multi-company, multi-currency, multi-country issues that come along with large, complex AX implementations. And Martinetti's is a good example of that. They're a billion-dollar-plus wine and spirits distributor out of New England. This organization, we actually took their close to a terabyte of data. We were able to create a cube for them in 6.5 hours. And upon completing that, we actually started to create one of their most complex reports, their performance reports, which takes 2 days every month, or took 2 days every month. We were able to automate that, create it so that it was able to be processed and sent out and pushed out every month. And now we're saving the controller of the organization 2 days a month that she can use to work on other projects. And Martinetti's actually purchased across the entire enterprise as well. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to quickly run through how this actual product works so that you have a visual representation before Trey and Justin walk you through the actual product. What we're going to do is we would pull in your AX and SQL data so that you could connect that to our CubeExpress wizard-based technology. That allows you to quickly create that operational data store and the multidimensional hypercube or OLAP hypercube that we create using ZAP. From there, we pull that into our ZAP BI layer, which allows you to render it inside of ZAP BI, a full-fledged business intelligence tool allowing you to create report packs, dashboards, scorecards, everything you would come to expect from an enterprise-level solution. Those can also be rendered inside of SharePoint, the AX role centers, enterprise portal, all the other processes that you would use as far as internal portals. And then last but not least, part of the value that we add are the business outcomes associated with ZAP. Again, those 700 plus out-of-the-box analytics that cover a broad range of finance, AR, AP. I know Trey will probably touch upon that briefly. And so that is really going to give you what you need in order to render and start to create things that go along with the reporting and analytics that you'd come to expect from something like ZAP, which is an enterprise-level BI tool. And so with that, I am going to have Mike, if you could, transfer this over to Trey.
Great. So just want to get started here talking a little bit about the solution, but I think one of the real benefits we have today, folks, my name is Trey Johnson. I'm with ZAP Technology. Joining me in this review of our technology is Justin from eBECS. And what I'm going to ask Justin to do is, as I go through this and talk to some of the capabilities of our product in more of kind of a generically applicable way to the AX platform, I'm also going to ask Justin to just kind of add, some of his perspective, particularly as it relates to the eBECS customers that are leveraging our product today. So Where we're going to get started is a place that I think you're mostly familiar with, and that is the AX Role Center environment. This happens to be the AX 2012 Role Center environment, but it could just as easily be the other versions of AX that many of you are using. And what you're seeing on the screen is obviously all of the capabilities of the AX product, but you're also seeing elements of the ZAP technology that are integrated here. And as Bill mentioned, our ZAP Business Intelligence product comes with prepackaged analytical content for you, the Dynamics AX customer. And so those several hundred pieces of analytics take the form of scorecards, as we're seeing here on the screen, charts, as we see here on the right-hand side, and even links out to financial reports as well. But I think we'll start our demo, focus a bit on this particular scorecard that we're looking at here. This scorecard is actually comprised of multiple key performance indicators. A key performance indicator, or KPI, is simply a means by which we measure an actual value from Dynamics AX, and that actual value generally has a corresponding target. That target could be a secondary data point within Dynamics AX. Using our eBECS technology, it could be a second data point from an entirely different data source. What it can also be is it also can be a more static value that maybe is a fixed percentage, or for those organizations focused on continuous improvement, it can be a % of improvement over a prior period of time. And so we have a number of different, KPIs out of the box. And before I kind of launch into exploring a lot of this, Justin, I guess I would just ask you, from your perspective, what have the prepackaged KPIs from ZAP done in those customer scenarios? And in the cases where you've built some KPIs quickly, how has that kind of augmented their insight?
Well, thanks, Trey. Having the prepackaged KPIs and the ability to quickly build new ones in ZAP has really provided our customers with an effective way to monitor their business across many different functional areas. The ZAP hypercube that is underneath the KPIs gives our customers the ability to look in on finance areas, sales areas, purchasing, inventory, and the list goes on and on.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And so, as we look at something like the scorecard, and thank you for that, Justin, what we're seeing here is we're seeing KPIs that span multiple areas for this particular decision maker. And what really makes a KPI is you have the actual value, you have the target. The performance of actual versus target gives us a view of the health or the status. In this case, we're seeing some different indicators that are red, some are yellow, some are green. That's indicative of health. We also have the ability to look back historically over the prior values, and we can even focus in on the trends. And the trends can be a reflection of simply the prior period's performance, or it can be a number of prior periods, say the last 6 months, 12 months, 8 quarters, whatever the case might be. And when a decision maker looks at a scorecard such as this, it really gives them the ability to focus in on those areas that maybe are a little bit problematic or certainly are not performing well. And that is certainly the case with this particular scorecard that we're looking at. So I'm actually going to follow a link here. And what this link is going to do is this is going to launch directly from within the Role Center one of the many out-of-the-box analytical dashboards that we have. And so what we're seeing on the screen is we're actually seeing a dashboard that's specific for the accounts receivable function. And really a dashboard within our product is simply a composite of multiple analytical elements, such as the day sales outstanding metric that we see here, a more focused scorecard for the accounts receivable function, and then, trended reports such as the day sales outstanding or the receivables turnover trend. And then lastly, on the lower right-hand side, a distribution of the aged receivables in the pie chart that we see. And so all of these provide some insight, but in a very specific way for a person that's very focused on, in this case, the accounts receivable function. We'll focus in on some other dashboards as we go, but to really help you understand how these dashboards can be used as a continuation of the analytical pathway, what I'm going to do is simply choose to go beyond this particular chart and look in at simply an aging report. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring that into focus here in the middle of our screen. And what you're going to see is not necessarily the sexiest report that you can create with the ZAP product, but a really good example of some of the core paradigms that ZAP and eBECS and our other partners are really trying to deliver for customers. And that is delivering reasonable, out-of-the-box analytical content that you can very quickly use to ask additional questions and get additional answers. And so one of the examples of that is if I choose to modify the payment terms here, I'm filtering in on those customers with the net 30-day payment terms. In addition, I can do some interactive things such as sorting on the 90 to 120 days outstanding. And what that effectively does is that brings my customers with the most outstanding debt to the top of the list. And many of you have received reports throughout your careers, and in many cases there's always a need to get to other details that maybe are not reflected on the reports. Well, there's a number of ways that we can accomplish that, but one of the ways that's very specific and why ZAP is the only BI product that is not only certified for Microsoft Dynamics ERP but also CRM is because when we interact with these data elements such as the customers, we get these additional details, but we also have a very clean mechanism for navigating just simply back to the application. And so in this case, what we're doing is we're actually launching the customer form for the particular customer, the School of Fine Art. And what you'll notice here is, we have gone through really the series of 4 screens. That is the Role Center, a dashboard, an aging report, and now back to the customer form. And at this level with the customer form, we're able to re-engage the business processes. We're able to basically better understand, some of the details that maybe wouldn't necessarily always make their way onto a report, whether that be invoicing activities, collection activities, and kind of the list goes on. And so, Justin, if I could kind of bring you back into this, because I know your customers are having this kind of integrated experience today, what's been, their reaction to BI becoming a little bit more part of the application, delivered contextually, and basically integrated there for their use?
Well, the ability to easily integrate the BI reports that are into the enterprise portal role centers is extremely helpful. The role centers in AX should be able to answer the following questions according to the Microsoft guidelines: is that what is my workload? What do I need to do next? Are there any urgent actions that I need to carry out? And what is the status of things that I should be most concerned about? And as you showed in the presentation here, you can easily get to, from the role center, drill down into the areas that are important for a particular business function, and get back to the actionable items there. So ZAP BI fits very neatly into this area. By providing analytics right in the role center, users can get the information that they need right where they need it, and it provides insight into a customer's job responsibilities. For instance, an AR manager might be able to see the top 10 delinquent customers and be able to initiate action on collections as needed. A role center should really provide a user with the right content for the job, be simple and cleanly designed, and be easy to skim and read, and ZAP BI can provide all of those features.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you again for that, Justin. So, I think, there certainly we've focused to this point on the interactions that are occurring, specifically within, the Dynamics AX application with the ZAP product. That is certainly one of the ways that our technology can surface for end users. And I guess as we're going here, I'll remind folks that if you have questions as we go, you can put them into the chat interface, or you can send them to Michael's email if you had seen his email address. But as we continue on here, AX is not the only environment where the AX analytics should surface for users. We can also surface within the more traditional SharePoint environments. And as a matter of fact, we also have our own browser-based application to support, some core audiences that maybe don't live within AX. And so, one of those audiences is obviously that larger set of consumers that need to interact with the analytics, that need to interact with the reports, that need to do some analysis, drilling up and down, things that I'll show in just a moment. But also, there's an audience that, believe it or not, could even be some of you on the phone, and that is that audience that does the design work. And so within this product, the browser-based environment, this is where we can also design analytical reports, charts, dashboards, KPIs, scorecards. And as we produce that content, it can either live in our own personal folders. Now, my name is Trey, but for the purposes of the demo, I'm the administrator, and so that's my personal folder. But we also have our public folders, and it's within these folders that some of the many pieces of analytical content that we deliver out of the box are discoverable. And so in this case, I might kind of navigate down through here, and of course we've got the AP and AR. We've got multiple finance reports that we could look at. But I think I might expand sales here and actually expand one of the other dashboards. And in this case, we have a sales manager dashboard, and this is a great example because many of you as customers, when you look at the inventory of analytical content we have, you see a lot of items on that list that make sense for your organization. But inherently, the way the information is presented may not 100% line up with the way that you as a business want to look at data. And so as a result, working with eBECS, working with maybe some trained folks in your organization, you can go through the process of really making these analytics your own, because we don't have an expectation that this is going to be the best fit or the 100% glove fit, but rather it's a good place to start. So in this case, if I look at this particular dashboard, I don't particularly care for these two charts, so I'm going to just simply choose to clear the contents from that area. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and delete its neighbor here as well. What that does is that creates a blank area on this particular dashboard. And from here, I can literally go shopping within the folder structure on the left-hand side and choose what I want to add to this particular dashboard. And so in this case, I might actually grab the gross margin key performance indicator and drag it over, and you'll notice some gray areas highlight. These are basically means for me to drop it into this zone. And you'll also recall from the scorecards we previously looked at that a KPI was a single line item with a red, yellow, or green indicator. When we drop it onto a dashboard, it can be represented in a much more visual manner, such as this gauge we see here. What that allows us to do is really accommodate those two audiences, and those two audiences may even be on this webcast. Those folks that are much more comfortable in that tabular orientation, that spreadsheet look and feel. We can certainly accommodate and deliver information in that way. But in addition, for those visual consumers, those folks that need to look at the analytics in a really visually represented way, you're seeing some good examples of the many ways that we can visually represent the data as well. And so really one of the gaps that I see on this particular dashboard, that if I was tuning this dashboard to suit a particular decision maker audience, is the need for them to actually ask some questions and get some answers, because we haven't given any filtering capability across the top. What I can do is say, let's go ahead and make this chart the filter for these other two items. And now, when the sales manager makes the selection from this particular chart, he or she will actually see the numbers start to change across the other elements as well. It's what this really does is this really takes a lot of that inherent burden that oftentimes sits with the IT team, that is to create one report and then create 5 or 6 variants of the report. Rather, through these interactive capabilities, the ability to ask additional questions, get additional answers, gives them a really strong, opportunity to better kind of take ownership of it. And so, I guess, Justin, to give me a chance to catch my breath here, I might just ask you a question and get you to comment. We've got several hundred pieces of out-of-the-box analytical content, and they're certainly intended to be a starting point for these customers. And versus being maybe a 100% glove fit. Can you just kind of share what your experience has been about, going through, the exercise of tailoring these analytics, modifying elements like the dashboards and the scorecards and the reports for your customers?
Sure. Our customers really do like having something on the screen to help them kind of firm up their own analytic requirements. Like you mentioned, I'm more on the just show me the data thing, but having the ability to display the data in different ways is certainly very useful. And I'm able to change individual reports and dashboards for different roles. And because the calculations, you can actually save and reuse those calculations globally in ZAP, it's really easy to make changes to it and have that change propagate to all the different places that calculation can be used. So it's extremely useful there. And having a place to start means a quicker turnaround for giving the process over to the customer to give them something that they may have needed but just didn't have before.
Excellent. Excellent. That's great. That's great. You know, and that really is the intent behind delivering the prepackaged analytical content, is really to do those things, Justin, that you're describing, to really empower the customers to, you know, move very quickly towards analyzing their data. Some of the customers that Bill referenced, and obviously the customers that we share in common, you know, they've been looking at implementations that are measured in weeks over the top of their AX environment. You know, in often cases, within the first week or two, they're looking at many of these dashboards. They're starting to understand what's happening within their business, and that is a dramatic change. So, you know, just kind of carrying on here for the folks on the line, you know, certainly there's an ability to come into an application like this browser-based application you see here to consume analytical reports, dashboards, and scorecards. Additionally, we deliver them through SharePoint, we deliver them through the role centers, but there's also generally a requirement to deliver analytics out to a group of users, and that's really where our report pack technology comes into play. And so what report packs do for us is they basically give us the opportunity, and I would imagine that somewhere in all of your organizations there's a person with the unofficial title of report hander outer, and that person probably is extracting data from AX or AX and other sources, assembling in Excel spreadsheets, maybe PowerPoint presentations, shipping it off to management teams or the board of directors, and then, you know, for as a reward for all the work they've done, they get to answer all the questions that people come back to them with and better understand the data. And so we've really allowed for a lot of that report hander outer functionality to be automated within the product. And by that I mean what you're looking at on the screen here is a report pack that's a combination of an aesthetic cover page, a table of contents, it's automatically generated, a rich text narrative, but then beyond that, it's simply the elements that already exist within the folder structure on the left-hand side. So I'm going to add an additional scorecard to this report pack. You'll notice it shows up at the bottom, and I can literally position it within this document. Now the output is a single document, a PDF file, which I'll go ahead and bring up an example here. And as you can see here, there's the aesthetic cover page, there's the table of contents. In this case, this is the rich text narrative. What's great about this narrative, and I'll pause here for just a moment, is this is an opportunity for, you know, those analysts that sit within your organization to actually express analytical thoughts to support the decision makers' consumption of the reports. In addition, you'll notice some things like numbers that I've highlighted here. Those numbers can actually be derived from the underlying data that is in the hypercube that Justin was describing. And then beyond that, it's what the user would have seen had they accessed the application directly, such as a dashboard, a scorecard, you know, or even something like a profit and loss summary. And so if I go back here to the ZAP application, the way that report pack is delivered is through something that we call as a publication rule. Now I won't bring up the publication rule just for the sake of time, but essentially it's an email on steroids, and that is an ability to, you know, really craft who the recipients are, dynamically build a message, and even incorporate analytics into the email message itself. What I will show briefly is if I click on the More button here, there's really two key ways that this is triggered out to the users, and I'll go ahead and click on Events. A scheduled event, that's something I think we're probably all, you know, conceptually familiar with. The weekly report comes out at every Monday at 7 a.m., which is great. You know, I know a lot of organizations are delivering analytics on a weekly basis, and there's certainly, you know, nothing wrong with that, and that's why we support it within our product. But what we've also done is we've brought forward a conditional capability, the conditional events. And what conditional events allow us to do is look at one of those KPIs that we've delivered out of the box, or, you know, folks like Justin from the eBECS team have built, and we can literally go ahead and grab one of these KPIs and drag it onto the surface. And so as I drag this KPI onto the surface, what I'm really doing is I'm saying, hey ZAP, you know when the data in the underlying cube is refreshed, so let's go ahead and take this actual, monitor this actual value, which is this blue needle here, and when it either rises above or falls below one of these other conditions, passing the target or another numeric data point, we want to trigger the delivery of a single report or that report pack that we just looked at to a group of users. And what's really different about that versus the scheduled event model, I think everybody has gotten weekly reports. In a lot of cases, the weekly report may not change dramatically. Certainly that's been the feedback from our ERP customers, that they used to only kind of deliver the reports out weekly, and some of the people, they would only see spikes in the data 4 or 5 times a year. And so as a result, they became pretty desensitized to the information in the weekly report. They weren't able to see the exceptionally good or bad things that were happening in the business. And what this really does is this just gives an opportunity for us to really embrace, delivering information to customers when they need it. And so, Justin, again, to get your perspective, how have your customers been kind of leveraging some of these delivery features we've been talking about within the ZAP BI product?
The delivery features are really an excellent tool. By being able to schedule reports or doing the conditional events, you can really get the data to the people that it needs to get to in a timely manner. For instance, if you have something like audit reports that need to be reviewed either weekly or monthly or quarterly, or whatever the time frame is, you can schedule those to get out so that you're making sure that you meet those requirements. It's really is an excellent feature of ZAP, and customers can see this as another valuable way of communicating from all levels of the business.
Great, excellent. So, I think we've covered a lot of the ways that we represent data, but I think one of the things that we probably should show for the folks is just kind of how a report comes together from, the ground up. And so to do that, I'm going to connect to a cube. Just as a reminder, all of the analytics you're seeing here are built on the top of a underlying data cube. And so I'm going to go ahead and just click OK. What that's going to do is that is going to give me basically this blank canvas on the right-hand side. This is essentially the report design canvas. And on the left-hand side is the dimension tree that gives us a view of the hypercube that ZAP has created. Now, if you're not familiar with cubes, it's totally okay. We really try and keep it simple. The numeric elements that are in your data, whether it be AX or AX plus other data sources, things like amounts, quantities, things of that nature, those would be considered measures, which I have highlighted on the screen. Everything below that is considered to be a dimension or essentially a business topic for analyzing the numbers. And so as you see me scrolling the scroll bar here, we have a lot of topics that could be applied to the numbers. Now typically, if you're like most people that would see this for the first time, you're going, oh gosh, we don't really know our way around all of the data in Dynamics AX, so we wouldn't necessarily know which topics relate to which numbers. The good news is we've put a lot of effort into making this very approachable for a large user audience. And so as a result, what we do is we just really encourage people to go after the numbers they're interested in first. That is, those numbers that are underneath this measures folder here. So we have everything from AP to GL numbers to inventory metrics, all the way down to things like sales and what's going on in the warehouse. But in this case, maybe I'll just expand the sales invoice lines, and I'm going to drag the sales invoice amount up to the column. So I'm doing drag and drop within the browser here. And what you'll notice is as I mouse over this, we're getting the full description that has come out of Dynamics AX. So the way the data is described in AX goes all the way through to the reporting side of things. But most importantly about what I've just done is if I collapse the measures folder here, you'll notice the scroll bar is gone, and the list of topics we have is a really manageable set of topics, and that's because we're always refining the data down to the topics that relate to the numbers that you've selected. So now everybody can be in a position to ask intelligent next questions, such as, hey, I want to understand this from a customer perspective. And so if I expand customers, there's different characteristics, such as the group they belong to, the customer's name, and these funny-shaped triangle icons are geography hierarchies in this case. And if I drag and drop the geography hierarchy on the rows, because it's a hierarchy, it has multiple levels, meaning that I can click on plus signs to navigate downward in the data, or since there's only one company here, I can just double click on this company to completely drill down on the countries that are where the customers are placed. And so in this case, we're looking at all countries. we're looking at the sales invoice amounts for all time. And speaking of time, we probably want to refine this a little bit so that we can focus on a particular time period. That's where the date elements come into this. And so if I expand date, we can look at this on a calendar basis, January 1 through December 31st. We can look at this by one or more fiscal years. So if you have different fiscal formats that you're supporting, those can be articulated here as well. In this case, I'll expand calendar. Calendar is a hierarchy, so that means we can go from the year to the quarter to the month to the week to the day. In addition, we have this nice folder called relative time. What relative time gives us the ability to do is it actually gives us the opportunity to focus in on dynamic periods, such as the current period being current month or quarter or year, or the last complete month, quarter, or year. In this case, I'm going to drag current month up to the columns. And that means that this report will always be a reflection of the current month. Now, you're probably seeing that this says April 2011. Obviously, that's not our current month, but what we have to do is we're going to give you this ability to create these reports with these relative kind of time periods in it. We also need to give every user the opportunity to do a little bit of time travel. And so that means they can actually go in and they can set their working date, in this case back to April 2011, so they can see what the sales invoice amounts looked like as of April 2011. And so it just so happens our sample data is real complementary to this date, and that's one of the reasons why that is set at the working date. Now I could use these additional folders to add elements to this, or because I think many of you probably are always looking at maybe a current period versus a prior period, I'm right-clicking, dragging, and dropping, and now I'm going to just go time, prior period, prior month. And so now I have both the current month and the prior month on this particular report. And because, you know, we're always interested in measuring differences and changes and things like that, well, I'm just going to mouse over this placeholder here and choose to create a custom formula. And so the way this works is we don't require that any of you be programmers, although I probably need to be a good speller, but rather than be a programmer, it's just simply the things that, you know, would be intuitive, the things that, frankly, my kids are learning in elementary school today. And that is, if I want to calculate the difference, I'm going to drag down the prior month, choose the arithmetic symbol for subtraction, I'm going to drag down the current month, and I'm going to just simply choose apply. What that does, that gives me the current month, the prior month, the difference between the two. To do something only marginally more sophisticated, I've right-clicked the difference, dragged and dropped it. I'm going to go ahead and call this percent diff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply divide this, so you can reuse some of these calculations over and over again. But I'm going to divide it by the prior month and click apply. Now that should be all we need to do as far as the data for this report. However, there's some aesthetic issues with this last column. Now we have dynamic ribbons that pop up as we're doing things like this design work. And so in this case, I have full formatting capabilities similar to what many of you experience in Excel today. In this case, I only really want to change this to be a percent. And so I've gone and done that for us here. And certainly while I'm here, I could probably go ahead and show that we can very quickly and easily turn on a chart. And so now that I've added the chart, I probably need to resize it so it's a little bit easier to see. And of course, now that I can see it, I think I want to change it just a little bit. And so I really only want to look at the current month and the percent difference on this chart. And so I go back again to these dynamic ribbons that have popped up. I'm going to go ahead and lock in the data that I want to chart. Now, I do have a problem. I have tens of thousands of dollars and tens of percentage points. So the tens of percentage points are never going to win. They're never going to show up on this particular chart. What I can do is I can simply highlight the column, and I can go ahead and say, go ahead and give it its own axis, and therefore we're able to see the information side by side. But probably the most important aspect of this is you still, whether it's visually represented or just simply in a table, you have the ability to drill down. So you notice that we've drilled down into some of the provinces within China. But what we also have the ability to do is everywhere a number shows up on either a table, such as this $191,000, or on a chart, we can double click on that number. And what that does is that gives us some drill-through capability, allows us to basically navigate to the data that underlies it. And so in this case, this was automatically generated, not a lot of aesthetic applied to it. Very obviously, we're looking at invoices and lines. We have a lot of detail that's available to us. This is very important for all those scenarios where you as users and as businesses need transparency to those underlying transactions. Our cubes will support that transparency down to very low levels within the ledgers to allow for you to see exactly what occurred transactionally. And if you get to the point where you have too much data shown in the browser here, well, you can certainly take this format as well as the other formats you've seen out to products like Excel, and you could do filtering within that interface. So I'm going to come back here, and again, I probably need to take a breath, but Justin, I know that at one point, doing the design work, being a user of ZAP was brand new for you, and I know you went through some training. How long did it take you to be comfortable to do things like building the report that I've shown you here?
Well, going through the training gave me a real good basis for getting started. Really was a great help in that regard. Once you start getting into it, I mean, certainly practice is going to be the best teacher, but certainly the training was an excellent help in getting going with that. So after finishing that first week, I was ready to start developing reports, doing new KPIs and things that you've been demonstrating here. So certainly very valuable experience for me, and a good one to start getting customers going, because now I can actually start training some of our customers and working in that regard.
That's great. That's great. I think what's really interesting for probably a lot of the people that are on the phone here is our training is about 12 hours in duration, and that allows for a person to be able to come out of that training and build reports, build dashboards, build KPIs and scorecards. And Justin, I know that you went through those courses as well. What we've seen in other customers, and Justin, I believe that you guys have seen in the eBECS customer base, is that there's some traditional business users that are actually starting to kind of take up the task to build out some of these analytics themselves. Is that pretty fairly represented in your customer base too?
That's certainly possible. As far as from building the cubes, that tends to still land mostly in IT. But once the cube is built, then business users, savvy business users, definitely have the ability and the capability to develop their own reports and do their own analytics, which is really helpful.
Great, great. Well, I think you just made reference to something that we do want to just show extremely briefly here. And folks, we've been focused a lot on the presentation aspects of this, the way that it surfaces within the AX environment, within SharePoint here in the browser, in terms of presenting information and maybe even building reports, which is certainly vital. And again, I'd encourage you, if you need to ask questions, you can put them in through the chat interface. You can send them off to Mike Hall. But what I also want to just touch on very briefly is we have another piece of this technology that's called eBECS. And what eBECS does for us is it's a wizard-based product that basically allows for us to connect to Dynamics AX, AX plus other data sources, and in a very managed way build out all of the data extraction processes for taking information from Dynamics AX, whether it be standardized data, customizations that eBECS has done for you or other partners have maybe done in the past, and basically bring all of those elements over into that hypercube for the purposes of reporting. And so, we've had a number of those customers that Bill cited that went through the cycles of going, oh, we've been struggling to report off this data for a long time, and in a very short time, eBECS creates that cube as the basis for the purposes of reporting. And built into this environment is support for multiple currencies, multiple languages, and so there really is a sound analytical platform being built here. And as we kind of cycle through this, which I won't spend a lot of time on, everything is a checkbox based paradigm. So for example, if you've created financial dimensions, to include that as part of the analytical solution, you're checking the box, whether it be a financial dimension, an inventory dimension, or in the case of AX 2012 and 2012 R2, the organizational hierarchies. Those can be additional elements that are part of the cube. In addition, you have the full list of standard entities on the right-hand side. Some of your technical people might prefer to see them by their database names, which we can certainly accommodate as well. But the checking of the box basically ensures that it ends up over here on the left-hand side. And once on the left-hand side, we can go through and we basically can be selective about what's included or not. Now, ZAP does have a best practices AX template that provides some of the key elements already being selected. But if you wanted to include additional elements, it simply is a matter of checking the box. And what happens is by checking the box, we're going to go off and ask some questions of AX. Tell us a little bit about the data in the column. So as I mouse over bank account here, you can see some examples of those values, so on and so forth. Suffice it to say, this solution, which garnered Microsoft's Global ISV of the Year award only a couple of years ago for all products, not just Dynamics, really expedites the delivery of things like cubes. And so, Justin, I know that you've got a pretty diverse background. Maybe you can talk about what this did in terms of your ability to participate in the BI aspects of your customers' needs.
Sure. Before I get to that, I want to make mention because it just occurred to me. You're talking about adding dimensions, financial dimensions that are specific to the customer. That's one of the things that one of our customers is doing. They're using their own dimensions, that developing their own reports and things like the sales reports. And CubeExpress has really been a real big part of that. My background has typically been on the ERP side of things, less so in analysis services and OLAP databases. So having this program is really an excellent tool. Really sets ZAP apart, in my opinion, from other BI platforms, where it can go analyze an AX database, not just any SQL one, although it can do that, but specific to AX, and interact with that database and pull out things that are either unique to the customers, things like customized fields that they may have added. It can analyze that, pull that into your hypercube. It really is an excellent tool, and speeds up the process, like you said, of building something meaningful to the customer with their data, with their environment in mind. So that's, like I said, an excellent tool, and I'm very happy to work with it.
Great. No, that's great. Yeah, and certainly I think Mike had alluded to that. We're certainly very receptive to drilling down with individual customers. Kind of after this session today. So I think Mike, in terms of timing, I know we're about 5 minutes before the close of the hour here. I might just simply hand back to you, or suggest that you might take control again. If there's questions to be answered, obviously. I'm here, Bill's here, Justin's here, and we'll just simply open it up to you.
Thanks very much, Trey. As I mentioned before, this presentation is to give you a really good overview of the ZAP tool in conjunction with Dynamics AX. And we will follow through with you. I haven't gotten any questions at all through email, and I haven't seen anything in chat so far. So I'm assuming that there aren't any, but certainly as we get back to you, if you have specific interests, we'd very much like to do that, review those with you, and then probably do some kind of a discovery with you, just in terms of finding out how you're using AX currently, how your reporting works, what would you like to accomplish, what would your objectives be, and then come back to you with more of a one-to-one demonstration, maybe to just address those issues. But you've got my name and number down there with my email address, and you can certainly get a hold of me. But James Gilmer will follow through with you over the next week and make sure that we've talked to everybody that attended. Another thing I just want to throw out to you with Justin, if you ever had a chance to deal with us, Justin actually comes from an AX customer. So we picked him up about just maybe 8 months ago or so, and he's been a real valuable addition to our team. But one of the big values he brings is the fact that he worked with this customer to develop their BI system internally. So he comes with a customer's perspective on using BI tools, as well as a consultant's perspective in terms of deploying them for other customers. So thanks very much for coming today. Really appreciate it, and appreciate your interest. And like I mentioned, we will be back to you. If you have any questions in the meantime, though, you do have my email address there. Bill and Trey, thank you very much for giving an excellent presentation. Really appreciate that. And we're excited to move forward with anybody who's interested. So everybody have a great weekend, and we'll follow through in the next week or so. Take care.